I'm Primal Piggy. Thank you for joining me for this BDSM United podcast, where we're talking about the ABCs of BDSM, that really foundational stuff, just kind of laying a foundation. If you've been experienced in BDSM and you've been involved in BDSM even for a long time, there can be gaps in your foundation. There can be, and those could be the sources of any kinds of problems or um, any kinds of issues that you're having with relationships or with how you play or how you connect with community as a whole. Maybe you came into BDSM with wrong intentions or misguided intentions, or and BDSM doesn't seem to be living up to what your expectations were. But we'll cover a lot of that in this podcast series. If you're new to BDSM, thank you for finding this podcast and for listening, obviously. And as well, this will be some really good information for you. This will be a good, fresh start. It'll be a good because it's going to tell you a lot more about our culture. Because BDSM is a lifestyle and it's a culture. There's a lot of things for you to learn. So we're grateful that you're here. Uh, as you may hear in public discussions about BDSM, there's a dark side to it. Some people are drawn to BDSM hoping somehow to heal or desensitize past hurts and to find love and trust. Others hope they can construct loving and emotionally close families uh, or replace their dysfunctional or failed biological families. There are people who are involved in BDSM in a more leather lifestyle who are involved in households and creating um, chosen families involved in power exchange and S&M practices. There are those who have undergone lots of traumas or traumas of varying degrees and utilize BDSM to help heal and help to take some of the power back from things that have been stolen from them. While some are able to heal and find the love and the personal comfort that they seek, logic tells us that they'll end up in BDSM relationships that may not be good for them. And a few will end up in relationships that repeatedly trigger past traumas, even though the individuals involved may not understand how or why. A lot of times, when we have problems choosing partners, just coming into our culture where you're probably going to, if you repeat those same patterns, you're probably going to find people who are involved in BDSM that look a lot like the types of people that you were attracted to or you found in your vanilla lifestyle. So, in other words, if you've been in past abusive relationships and you have uh, and you're not very good at vetting, you're not very good at selecting partners, there you could use a lot of work in that area. There's a likelihood that you will find abusive people also involved in BDSM. In our culture, even though we explore things like S&M and we preach over and over again consent limits, negotiations, and all of the like, it is still a place where a lot of predators and people who are just shitty people in general like to hide. There are people that are just in it for rough sex. There are people that are just in it for the ability to be sadistic towards someone else. They're just looking for a masochist that they can beat on or a masochist that they can abuse emotionally. There are predators within our culture, just like there are predators everywhere. And if you have a problem vetting and you have a problem finding, uh, finding uh, non-predatory people, in your past. Coming into BDSM won't automatically fix it. Just because we're sometimes better at communicating and we talk about things more doesn't mean that you won't need to relearn some of that vetting. And so this isn't the place to discuss people who've experienced past physical trauma, psychological trauma, but we really do want to mention that choosing to participate in this way of life is a decision to be transformed in some way. Well, most people who take the step to explore BDSM find others who are easy to get along with, socially and psychologically. Others don't. Some people who start down a path of BDSM ultimately conclude it's not a good path for them. While we think that BDSM is generally good for society and should be somewhat normative, it's really just not for everyone. In our intro, we talk about this isn't for the cookie cutter conservative vanilla prudes. It's kind of a little polemic jab there, but it is ultimately just saying that BDSM just isn't for someone who has religious inclinations that would say that all of the things that we're doing are sinful or against the will of the gods. And it's not for anyone who's necessarily just wants to or doesn't want to uh, be seen involved in anything taboo. And it's definitely not for anyone who um, just likes the cookie cutter relationship, that just wants, you know, just wants what they want and, or, wants to just have this picture perfect lifestyle. And because there's a lot of um, hard communication that is involved. Um, some people who, this BDSM just may not be for you. And as you learn more about yourself, you'll realize that your initial reasons for participating in unusual relationship structures or in edgy forms of sexuality are not necessarily good reasons in and of themselves. In fact, some of you will discover that your participation in BDSM has made you less trusting, more isolated than you were before you started. So be aware that uh, uh, many who enter our culture won't find a welcome home. Uh, some people seem to think that they can heal past traumas through BDSM as well. And while BDSM is therapeutic on some levels, BDSM is not a replacement for professional therapy. It's not a great idea. BDSM can really easily backfire. And if your relationship is broken as it is right now, your relationship just isn't working. Adding BDSM to that relationship is not going to be a good thing. I mean, it could be a fun thing for sure, but adding BDSM to it is probably going to make your relationship just more chaotic and it's just going to cause different hurts and different pains than what you're experiencing right now. You need a certain amount of personal and relational stability to be involved in aspects of BDSM. And that's going to be somewhat subjective, just based on everybody's different on what they need. But there is going to be some level of stability. An important part of power exchange relationships, for instance, is consistency, being consistent in your identity. And if you are all over the place in your identity and you don't have a certain ability to stick to one thing, then you're probably going to add a lot of chaos to somebody who's trying to form a power exchange relationship for you. If you're more dominant on some days and just radically submissive on other days, and then shift to the afternoon. In the morning you're submissive, and in the afternoon you're radically dominant again. You're going to cause a lot of chaos. And it's just not going to turn out super well. It's going to be that inconsistency is just going to lead to a lot of unhealthy stuff. And so, your experience of the BDSM community and your success at being a good partner for someone else benefits from starting out being being an emotionally strong and healthy person, as well as knowing something of your own motivations and your own drives. Self knowledge can take a lot of thought and work. Swimming successfully in the BDSM waters requires you to wake up and pay attention, especially to yourself. You can hurt someone or be hurt by someone both physically and emotionally. This is ultimately BDSM is an alternative way of living your life, but it's not a game that we're playing. It's a culture, it's a lifestyle. As you'll discover, communication and trust are core elements of BSM relationships. If you're not ready for communication, if you just don't see any way in which you can communicate with someone or make accommodations to communicate with someone, you're not going to do very well in either the B&D or the S&M parts. You're certainly not going to be able to really thrive in a power exchange relationship, but there's going to be a lot of safety concerns and involved in S&M play if you're not able to communicate. If you don't have a certain amount of transparency, or you just inherently don't think that you could ever trust anyone, putting your life, putting your body in other people's hands is gonna probably mean that BDSM may not be for you. You're gonna have to be able to develop trust and learn how to trust on some levels. Whether short or long term, successful BDSM relationships are based on clear and honest communication. This is particularly important because much of what goes on between partners in this lifestyle can be edgy. Trust between partners quiets the natural fear of new experiences and helps both the top and the bottom to release themselves emotionally and relax into the relationship dynamic or into their S&M play. I'm Primal Piggy. Thank you for joining me for this BDSM United podcast in our ABCs of BDSM series. Um, you can find all of our resources at www.bdsmunited.com. It was a joy speaking with you today, and I'll talk with you again soon.